Oh, the echo is so bad in here. Hey guys, today I am coming at you from my new office in Maine. I literally just finished painting this like 5 minutes ago, so I figured I'd do my little intro here while I'm at the house. We're not moving for another month, but you know, coming up as much as possible to keep painting and finishing things. So today's video, I want to show you how to mash up different patterns to make several mosaic crochet patterns in one. I am going to show you how to figure out how to lay out a design like this. You can use any kind of patterns you want, but this is just an example that I'm going to be showing you in the video. So the pattern we're actually going to be making is the lovers pattern, which is this back patch that I made. Here's a sample of the actual The Lovers pattern. And as you can see, this includes Bonez, Batty, Love You to Death, Roses and Thorns, Vintage Keys, Moons, and an extra border, and there's a lot going on. So if you have all of these patterns already, this is a really good video for you because this will show you how to piece them all together and also how to include this middle part where they're holding hands. So we're gonna head on back into my studio in Salem, Massachusetts, and we'll get started on this video. So here is an example of a pattern mashup. So this one starts with foliage, and we got the hand signs, the palm, and foliage on this side, and then we have the eye, the goodnight pattern, which is the moons, and then swallowtail butterfly wings. And this one is very easy to put together because the foliage pattern, all you're doing is following it across all of the stitches in the chart. Same thing with the hand signs. This one is all the stitches in the chart. And so you're just following all of them across to get this design. The only difference is on this side, I reversed the pattern. So instead of reading the chart from right to left, I'm actually reading the chart from left to right in order to get a mirror image. But then when we have patterns like the eyes and even the goodnight moons, these are multiple moons in one chart. This one's also multiple eyes in one chart. So you're going to actually have to look at it and see where you have blank stitches to where you can like basically cut out the design and put it wherever you'd like in your design. So to look real quick at the moons, just to show you what I mean by that, is we have all of these that are special stitches, and we cannot split a special stitch in half. Do not do that or you will mess up the design. What I'm talking about is these right here. You could see this is a whole section of just all background stitches. So we have DCs followed by single and DCs and single. So all of this is just, it's filler. I call them blank stitches. And you can either add these if you need to add more background to make a design fit across, or you can take these away and just use the pattern up to where you have your first like set of special stitches. So when you're using a design like the moon, even though the repeat section starts all the way over here, we don't want to add just this into a pattern that wouldn't look right. We want to add just the full moon here. And so we would need to add all of these stitches, and you can stop whenever you start seeing just a whole row of X's. That's when you know you're at the background and you can cut that part out. So it really depends on what charts you're using, what designs you want to put together. Some of them are a little easier than others, but like I said, all you need to do is pay attention to where you have extra background stitches that you could either add or remove in order for things to fit correctly. So for this particular pattern, using this design, it would be 15 for this one, plus 20 for the hands, and another 15 for the foliage on this side. And then don't forget, we need to add 2 for our border stitches. So always add 2 more stitches to your total. And that comes to 52 stitches across, including the border stitches. So then all you would need to do is start following the foliage pattern from row 3 after you have your 2 foundation rows. Follow across and then stop when you get to the end of the chart, and then you'll start following the palm chart all 20 stitches across to the end of that chart, and then you're going to start again, foliage reversed, reading the chart this way, all 15 stitches to the end there, and you will do that all the way to the end of the palm chart here, and you will just keep continuing following the foliage pattern. When we begin adding our next section, you're just repeating the foliage on the sides here or whatever pattern you're using. When you're ready to add your next section here, sometimes this won't always match up with what you have down here. This one is 20 stitches across for the hand pattern, but then the eye, when you count it, it's 21 stitches across. And in order for this to look like it is perfectly centered, I actually kind of cheated and I added 2 DCs in the same stitch over here without skipping a stitch. So I'm adding 1 stitch to the rest of the pattern. So now this bottom part here has 1 stitch less, but you're never ever going to notice it. All you're going to notice is, oh look, it matches up perfectly even on both sides. That's all you really want. Nobody is going to notice 1 extra stitch added to a whole other section. I wouldn't go any higher than 1 stitch though, because you might see it kind of warp a little bit, but if you need to, go ahead and add 1. Nobody's going to know. And when you are working with patterns that you want to overlap a little bit, again, you can look, this pattern here has a lot of blank stitches at the bottom. So instead of keeping that space on the bottom of the butterflies, I decided to move the butterflies down a little bit. So as you are working the last row of the eye, you are also at the same time starting the butterfly down here. So these stitches were worked in the same row. Again, all depends on what pattern you're using, but if there is blank space, go ahead and take advantage of that. And when you have a lot of space and you're trying to make sure that everything is even, it is absolutely best to use stitch markers so you know exactly where a design will fit. There's a lot of space here because the foliage is a lot wider. I believe this is like 5 stitches wider than the width of the moon. So we have extra stitches, and we, you can either make the moon over here or over here, however you want. Use stitch markers and mark out the stitches that you'll need for the moon so you can see exactly how many blank stitches to add on either side, and same with on this side over here. And then when you're working with placing the center design here, again, using stitch markers to mark out how many stitches you need for the butterfly. And then it's just kind of, you just go on autopilot. Once you finish and you are ending with a stitch marker, then you can switch to the next pattern, follow across those stitches, and then once again, finish following that and then adding any blank stitches that you have. Another thing to keep in mind when you are adding multiple patterns together is to be careful of matching the backgrounds together. And what I mean is when you have a background that's like all color A, you want to make sure that when you're adding another pattern that the backgrounds match up. Always make sure that you are continuing to alternate every single row. So from color A to color B. So when you're adding another one, you always need to make sure that the backgrounds match up. So let's say we're ending this design with all background stitches that are color A. We want to make sure the next row, whatever we're doing, is a color B row. And now that we've kind of gone over all the basics for making a pattern mashup, let's go ahead and work on the lovers pattern, where I will show you how to put all of this to use. So if you've been a longtime fan and you have a lot of these patterns already, I'm going to show you in this video how to piece them all together and add this middle part here so you don't have to buy the whole thing. And if you're new and you don't have any of these patterns, well, you can pick up the lovers pattern that actually has all of these already charted out for you. So all you would need to do, you could either follow along with the video or you can follow the instructions in the chart and it'll show you how to do the entire back patch all in one. So for this project, I decided I am gonna use this orange color for the background. As you can see, I've been in an orange mood lately. We just painted our brand new living room in bright orange, and yeah, I'm just gonna go with the fact that that room is gonna be like Halloween, but every single day. So I'm gonna use Malabrigo Rios in Sunset for the background of the back patch that I am making, and then the foreground color, which will be the skeletons and bats and all of that. I'm going to use Barocco Modern Cotton in Longspur, aka black. And yes, I am using a wool with a cotton, and this is actually a cotton blend, this is cotton modal, but I do that because I like having the structure of the cotton with the merino wool, and I like the colors of the merino wool better than the cotton. The color range that this one comes in is ugly, in my opinion. It is so dull and boring. So that's why I like to mix the modern cotton with anything else. I'm just being honest. So for the lovers pattern that we are making today, the thorns are 7 stitches across and Bonez are 12 stitches across. And then we have a space in between for the heart and the hands and the key and all that stuff, and that will be 7 stitches in that space. So altogether, that is 45 stitches across. So we're going to start with 45 plus 2. Don't forget to add those 2. So we're going to have 47 chains for our foundation chain. So I am going to go ahead and add my 47 chains. And once you have 47 chains across, we are going to chain 1 and single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and add single crochet all the way across the chain to the very end. And this will make row 1. And now we're ready to add row 2. We are going to start with a border stitch as usual into the first stitch, both loops. And if you're unfamiliar with border stitches, I definitely recommend checking out the beginner tutorial. And of course, the special stitches video is mandatory before you start any projects like this. I'm not going to cover any special stitches, just the basics that you need to know in order to put this together. So after you have your border stitch, we are just going to add single crochet, top back loop all the way across to the end, and then finish with a border stitch in the very last stitch, and then we will start following the charts. And now we are ready to take a look at this very first chart here that we're going to use for the bottom border. So this one is 5 stitches in each repeat section, and because we have 45 stitches across, not including the border stitches, that means we are going to have 9 of these across to make 45. So we are ready to start row 3, and that one has no overlay stitches, which is why we see the opposite color, but we are crocheting the entire row with color A, which is the same color that we started with here, which will be the orange. So we're going to do all single crochet stitches across for row 3. I am going to go ahead and do that off camera, and I will see you for row 4. Okay, we have rows 1, 2, and 3 done, all single crochet rows. And now row 4 starts with a single crochet, and then we have 3 DCs that are decreased together. So in the next 3 stitches, we are going to have DCs that are decreased into 1 stitch. And the very first stitch here will start with a single crochet, and the very last stitch in the sequence will end with a single crochet. any D's with a line above it will have a single crochet stitch either starting or ending that stitch. So let's start with the single in the next stitch, and then directly below it into this black stitch here we are going to start a DC. So yarn over, insert your hook directly below, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loops, stop when you have 2. Now we're going into the next one, yarn over, we're going into the next black stitch down here, insert your hook, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loops, and when you have 3 we're stopping, we're going to the next one, yarn over, insert your hook, pull through 1 loop, pull through 2 loops, and when you have 4 on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and then we will end this sequence with a single crochet back here. You see where we ended this last DC, we're going to add a single crochet back here in the top row back loop, 1 single crochet, and that will finish the DCs that are decreased together. And then the next stitch is a single, and we will repeat these 5 stitches again all the way across until we have 9 of these points here. And here's what row 4 looks like all done. We've got 9 of these little spiky stitches. It's a little hard to see the black, but once we add the next row you can see that these all go in to a point to 1 stitch at the top. So row 5 starts with 2 DCs, 1 single, and 2 DCs, and the first 2 DCs go into these stitches here. This one is hidden behind this decrease right there, so let's throw in 2 DCs down here into these orange stitches. The next one is single at the top of that decrease, and the next 2 stitches are single, and that first one is in here, and these are where the next 2 stitches will go. So DC into that hidden stitch right there, and the next one next to it right there. So these are the 5 stitches that we are repeating all the way to the end, and I will see you for the next row. And here's what row 5 looks like. We have 4 DCs in between each of these little spiky things at the very bottom of our design, and we are ready to start row 6, and row 6 is all single crochet. So just like in row 2 and 3, all single crochet all the way across this row. And now we have row 6 in, and we are ready to mark out where we will have each of our different sections at the bottom here. So on the right and left sides we start with the all thorns pattern, and that will be 7 stitches across. The original chart, what we are going to do is we're not going to follow the repeat section, which when it's marked here it comes to there. We want the whole thorn, so actually we are going to start, when we're following the original chart, we're going to start right at the very beginning here. So we're going to start with the very first stitch and then count 7 stitches across, and we are going to use all of those stitches for the thorns. So although the repeat section stops right there, we're going to include this first stitch if you're using the original chart. So let's use some stitch markers to mark out the thorns on both sides so you can see what I'm talking about. And we'll use the same color. So we have, don't count this first border stitch. This is the first one. We're going to ignore that one. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those 7 stitches is where we are going to put the first thorn on this side. So just for reference, all of these stitches, including this pink stitch marker right here, will be for the first thorn, and then we'll go on the other side and do the same thing. Don't count the border stitch. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and mark the 7th stitch, and that will be the thorn on this side. Mark that one. And now we know thorns will be including these pink stitches right here. And now let's take a look at the bones pattern. So now the bones pattern at the very bottom, you can see the repeat section is marked off, and we are actually going to follow the repeat section and add that to what we have here. So this, we are going to stop adding bones right to the end of that repeat section, and then when we do bones on the other side, it's exactly the opposite of that. So we are going to stop bones right there, right before. So this middle stitch right here, this column right in the middle, is where we're going to expand and add our heart, our key, our holding hands, all our other stuff. So we are not including this in the bones when we are marking it down here. So the repeat section for the bottom of bones is 12 stitches across. So let's mark that on our piece here. Let's use purple for those. So remember, this is the last stitch in the thorns. So after this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, we're going to mark the 12th stitch. This is the end of the bones repeat in the 12th stitch here. So I have that marked out. And then to make it easier, instead of counting from here to figure that out, we are going to do the same thing from this side, starting at the left side, count and mark the 12th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going to mark this one right here. Then we are going to count in the middle to make sure we're all set. But we should have, when you take out these purple stitches, we should have 7 stitches in the middle right here, and this is where we're adding our extra sections here. Now we are going to actually start following the charts. If you're following the original thorn chart, then you will be beginning this row from row 3, and if you are using the new the lovers chart, the thorn side sections from row 1. And instead of going through every single stitch, because that'll take a year and a half to do, I am going to just put them in to save some time. We have the first thorn on this side. You can take out this stitch marker and you can add it to the very last stitch at the top like this. Or if you're me and you're comfortable with counting 7 stitches every single time, then you can leave the stitch marker out. But for the purposes of this video, I am going to move the stitch marker every time so you can see what I'm working on. And now in the next 12 stitches up to this purple stitch marker, this is where we are starting to add bones. And if you are following the original pattern, that means you are starting with row 9. And if you are using the new The Lovers pattern, that will start the middle chart from row 1. So I am going to go ahead and add those stitches in here in the next 12 stitches. And now I am at the last stitch of bones. And I just went right over that stitch marker. Now I can take that out and put it back into the very last stitch that we finished at the top, like that. Oops, like that. There we go. So now that was the last stitch in bones. And now we have these 7 stitches in the middle here, and because I did not want the vintage key to be interfering with the feet of Bonez. I'm just going to add all DCs across here just to give it a little bit of space. So all DCs in here, 7 stitches. Now that we're up to the purple stitch marker where we're going to start adding Bonez again, remember Bonez is now shifted over 1 stitch, and I'll show you real quick. If you're following the old chart, this is this stitch right here we've already done, so we are starting the Bonez pattern right here. So we'll have 3 singles, 5 doubles, 3 singles, and a double for that section right there. And if you're following the other chart, you're just continuing right across. And now we're up to that pink stitch marker, which will start the thorn section on the left side, and that one will be exactly the other direction of this one. And because this row, as you can see, it's the same on either side, we'll just add that in right here. This is 3 double, 1 single, 3 double to the end right here. Okay, now that that row is all finished and we are ready to start the next row, this will be row 10 for the old chart and row 2 for the new chart. And what I am going to do to save some time is I am going to do the thorn chart and the Bonez chart, and we are just going to focus on this center part here because this is new and not included in any of the old patterns. So when you are working this pattern using the old charts, you're working thorns the next row. So this would be row 4, and then Bonez row 10, and then this is the part I will show you on camera. The next row right here will be row 10 of Bonez of the old chart, and at the very end here is again thorns, following the same chart as over here but reading it the other way. And if you're not a fan of reading charts backwards, then you can actually follow it like this. So these 2 boxes right here, these are mirror images. So when you're ready to work on the left side here, you can actually start reading the chart from row 13. So that's an easy trick if you don't want to read the charts backwards, but if you don't mind reading them backwards, the right side will be read this way and the left side will be read that way. So off camera, I am going to go ahead and do these first 2 sections, and then we will focus on the middle right here. So now we're ready for this middle section here, which will be 7 stitches in between the 2 skeletons. And you can follow along with the chart that I have at the top of the screen there. This will be row 2 of the new chart. These will be all single crochet stitches, all 7 across. Just like that, nice and easy. And then the stitch marker will start the Bonez row 10, thorns row 4. And now we have thorns row 5 done and Bonez row 11 done. And in these middle 7 stitches, we'll start row 3 of the key, which will be 3 double crochet in the next 3 stitches, followed by 3 single, 1, 2, 3, and last stitch is a double. And it might look a little off center because the key actually faces the left, and the middle of the key will be, it'll be centered once we get up there. But yeah, it does look a little strange at the bottom, but this is correct. And then we'll move on to row 11 of Bonez and row 5 of the thorns backwards. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in, and I will meet you back here for the middle of this one again. And I've added row 6 of thorns and row 12 of Bonez, and we are ready to do row 4 of this center section here of the keys, and that starts with 3 single, and 2 double, and 2 single to finish the key. And I have all of these charts off camera in front of me here, so I'm actually marking each row as I go. And it's probably a good idea for you to do that as well if you're working with multiple charts, just to keep track of which rows you've done already. And yeah, so the next one will be row 12 of Bonez, and finish on this side here with Thorns in row 14 or row 6 backwards. And here I've added row 7 of Thorns and row 13 of Bonez. And now we're ready to work on row 5 of the middle key section here. And that will be 3 double crochet, 1, 2, and 3, followed by 3 single crochet right here, 1, 2, 3, and 1 double crochet in the next stitch. Now you can see the bottom of the key. It's just like that. And now we'll work on row 13 of Bonez, followed by row 15 of Thorns or 7 backwards. And here's row 8 of Thorns and row 14 of Bonez. I know these start looking a little repetitive because the legs are just going to keep repeating up for a little while longer. And now we are ready to work in the middle here, and this is going to start getting a little repetitive as well, as you can see on the chart. But the next 3 stitches are single, so we'll just add those in here. And now we'll start the middle of the key, and that is 1 double crochet down here, and 3 single in the next 3 stitches, and that will start to repeat to make the key taller. And then the Bonez on this side will be row 14, and finally Thorns on this side will be row 16 or row 8 in reverse. Row 9 of Thorns is right here. Now we have row 15 of Bonez, and we are ready to start row 7 of the key. And this is just adding background around the key shaft right there. So the next 3 stitches will be double crochet and a single in the next stitch, and 3 double crochet in the next 3 stitches down here. And that's what that looks like. And then to finish off this row, then we will add Bonez row 15 here and Thorns row 17 or row 9 backwards. And I'm actually going to skip ahead a few rows because if you look at the chart, row 6 and row 7 repeat again with row 8 and 9, and then row 10 is the same as row 6 as well. So I am going to work those rows off camera, and then we can add row 11 together. And all you'll need to do is just continue following the rows in the chart for each section that we have marked out here. One little thing I wanted to mention is when you're following the Thorns chart, it will repeat over and over and over again. So after you finish row 18, you're going to start the pattern again from row 3. So skip rows 1 and 2 and go right to 3 after 18. And now we're ready to do row 11 of the key section here. This is row 13 of Thorns, and we're up to the knees of Bonez, which is row 19. And let's work on row 11 together. This one starts with 2 double crochet, and then 3 single at the top here, and then 2 doubles down here in the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. And then we will work row 19 of Bonez, and we are actually up to row 5 because we restarted the pattern. So row 5 of Thorns will go here. And here's row 14 of Thorns added, and we have row 20 of Bonez, which has no overlay stitches. So we're right in between the legs here, and we are ready to do row 12 of the key, which will be 2 single crochet, 1, 2, and then 3 double crochet in the next 3 stitches down here. And then the next 2 stitches are single, like that. And now you can kind of see the key is centered even though the bottom was facing this way. So it'll be symmetrical in between these 2 stitch markers here. And then we'll go ahead and add row 20 of Bonez, and then over here is row 6 of the Thorns. And here's row 15 of Thorns and row 21 of Bonez. And now we are ready to do row 13 of the key, which starts with 1 double crochet in the next stitch, and 5 single crochet across here, and the last stitch is a double down here. And that's what that row looks like. And now we can do row 21 of Bonez and row 7 of Thorns. And here's row 16 of Thorns, row 22 of Bonez, and now we can work on row 14 of the key. Next stitch is single, and we have 2 doubles, 1, 2, down here, and then next stitch is a single, and 2 double, 1, 2, and finally the last stitch is a single, and that's what that row looks like. And then we can continue over here, adding row 22 for Bonez and row 8 for Thorns. Here's row 17 of Thorns and row 23 of Bonez, and now we can work on row 15 of the key. So the next stitch is a double, next 2 stitches are single, and then we have a double crochet in the middle here, Next 2 stitches are single. And finally a double down here. We are almost done with this key, and we'll move on to row 23 of Bonez, and Thorns will be row 9. Here's row 18 of Thorns and row 24 of Bonez, and let's work on row 16 of the key. We have single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2, and then we have a double down here, a single in the next stitch at the top of this orange, then a double down here, and finally 2 singles. And there we have row 16 all done. And then we can add row 24 of Bonez and row 10 of Thorns. And now we've started the chart over for Thorns, so this is row 3. And then we have row 25 of Bonez, and we are ready for row 17. And oh my god, we have special stitches. The easiest ones ever. The next stitch will be a DC down here. And then in this stitch, we're adding 2 double crochet in the same stitch. And now we are skipping this next black stitch right there, and we are going single at the top right there. And then we are skipping this stitch and putting 2 double crochet in the same stitch down here. 1 and 2. And then the next stitch is a double. And there is our finished key. And then we can add row 25 of Bonez and finish with row 11 of Thorns. And here's row 4 of Thorns and row 26 of Bonez. Both super easy. This whole bottom section is fairly easy. And after these rows, it starts getting really interesting. Now we're gonna work on row 18, which is all single crochet stitches across. You don't need to watch me do all of them because there's nothing special going on in this row. And then over here, we're going to do row 26 for Bonez and finish with row 12 for Thorns. And here we have row 5 of Thorns, and I've started row 27 of Bonez, and it didn't finish because right at this last stitch here, we're not adding those last 2 single crochet as in the original chart because we're going to start adding stitches to make the hands come together right here. So we don't want the hands to start over here and then have them over here as well. So I took the stitch marker out. So after you work those 5 double crochet, add that single at the top of the leg bone here, and then we are going to jump right into the middle section right here. Actually, I'm going to take the stitch marker out too, because we're going to work across all of those stitches. So now we'll actually have 11 stitches to work the hand section right here. So the next 5 stitches on row 19 will be double crochet. So we'll add 5 across here. So here are 5. The next stitch is a single, and then 5 more double crochet till we get to Bonez right at the leg right here. And now we will work Bonez again, starting from that next single crochet stitch. So then it would be the 5 double crochet, and then we'll work row 27 the way we normally would following that chart. So those would have 3 single crochet to end that section right there. And then this one will be Thorns row 13. So just so you can see what this looks like on this side will just have that hand on one side, just like mirrors on this side right there. So we're keeping it nice and even on both sides. So I'm going to work my stitches again all the way to this point right here. Just so there's a little less confusion on what the heck I'm doing here. This section of the original Bonez pattern is what I'm cutting out and replacing with those new stitches for the hands, which is this whole big section right here. So when you're following the Bonez pattern, you're working the first 10 stitches and then you're stopping, and we're going to switch to the hand section. And then again, when you're starting to work Bonez again, you're skipping the first 3 stitches in that repeat, and you're just working the last 10 stitches of that row. So now I've actually marked out those stitches, the 11 stitches in the middle. So I've worked Bonez up to this point here. This is row 6 of Thorns, and then we have the beginning of the first 10 stitches on row 28 of Bonez, and now we are ready to put the hands in here. So on row 20 we are adding 4 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we are adding a triangle into the stitch here. So skip this one, DC down here, and then directly above that DC stitch back here, we're adding our single, and then back down into the same stitch that we did the DC. We're adding another DC back down here, and then we are skipping this stitch right here. Our next 4 stitches are single, starting over here. So single, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is what the triangle looks like. That's where the hands are, in the middle of our piece. And then we will start Bonez again, skip the first 3 stitches in row 28 and work the next 10 stitches across. Then we will add row 14 in here for the Thorns. Here's row 7 of Thorns and the first 10 stitches of row 29 of Bonez. And then we are working on row 21 of the hands, and the next 4 stitches are double crochet down here, and then the next 3 stitches are single. 1, 2, 3, and again 4 DCs. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the next 4 stitches. And here is what that row looks like. And then we are skipping the first 3 stitches of Bonez, row 29, work row 29, 10 stitches across, and then we will add row 15 of Thorns right there. And here's row 8 of Thorns, and the first 10 stitches of Bonez on row 30. my favorite part of the whole pattern because it's just so darn cute. And now we are ready to do the diagonal stitches on row 22. And the next 3 stitches are single. 1, 2, 3, and we have a diagonal down, so we are skipping the next stitch and DC down here. So double crochet in this stitch, and then directly above it, right up here, we're adding our single, and that finishes the diagonal down. The next stitch is single, and then we have a diagonal up, so the next stitch is single. Directly below it, we're adding the double crochet down here, and we are skipping the next stitch, so skip this one right here. Our next stitch will go here, and that is a single, and then we have 2 more singles, so 3 singles to the stitch marker. And here we have row 22, and that's what that looks like. Then we will add row 30 of Bonez after you skip the first 3 stitches, add 10 here, and then we have row 16 of Thorns. And here we have row 9 of Thorns completed, and we have the first 10 stitches of row 31 for Bonez, and now we are ready to work in the arm section here. For row 23, the next 3 stitches are double crochet. So 1, 2, and 3. And this is just kind of building the background of where the arms are. Next stitch is a single. And then in here we have 3 double crochet. This one's a hidden stitch, and that's a hidden stitch there. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Next stitch is single. And the last 3 stitches are double. 1, 2, and 3. And here we have row 23 done, and we will work Bonez row 31, skip the first 3 stitches in that chart. And then for Thorns, we have row 17 to add here. Here's row 10 of Thorns, the first 10 stitches of row 32 in Bonez, and that last stitch, the 10th stitch, actually is a skip, so I haven't connected it yet. So this is the stitch that we are skipping right back there, and this is the next stitch, so we are going to start working row 24. So the next 2 stitches after the skip are 2 singles, so we'll add those, 1 and 2, and then another diagonal down, so skip, DC, single. Here's our double crochet down here, single directly above it, and then the next 3 stitches are single. 1, 2, 3, and then a diagonal up, starts with a single, double crochet directly below it, and skip the next stitch. So our next stitch will go right here, and that is a single. And we're finishing that row with another single. And here's what row 24 looks like in the middle. Skip the first 3 stitches in Bonez on row 32, add those stitches, all 10, and then we'll finish with row 18 of Thorns. Here's row 11 of Thorns. First 10 stitches of row 33 on Bonez, and let's work on row 25 of the arms. So the next 2 stitches are double crochet, and then single crochet up here, and then we have 5 double crochet in the middle. 2 of these are hidden stitches in here. So let's start. 1 and 5 is in there. Next stitch is single up here, and the next 2 stitches are double crochet right in here. And there is row 25. Then for Bonez, skip the first 3 stitches and add row 33, and then we will add row 3. Again, we're starting the chart over for Thorns, and then we will continue. Here's row 12 of Thorns and the first 10 stitches of row 34 of Bonez, and now we're going to work on row 26, and that starts with 1 single crochet. And then we go into a diagonal down, skip, DC, single. So into the black, double crochet, single crochet directly above to complete the diagonal, and then we have 5 single crochet across the top. And I apologize if you hear creaking all the time. My desk is super old and super annoying. Not sure if I'm going to keep it when I move, but this is what I'm dealing with for now. So we have 5 single, and now we're going to do a diagonal up, which starts with a single, double crochet directly below it in the black, and skip the next stitch, single right here, and that finishes that row of that chart. So this is row 26 done. We're going to skip the first 3 stitches in row 34 of Bonez, add those 10 stitches in here, and then back to here, row 4 of Thorns. And here's row 13 of Thorns, all done. We have the first 10 stitches of row 35 on Bonez, and now we are ready for one of the last rows, row 27 of the arms. The next stitch is a double crochet right here. Next stitch is single. And then in here to here, we have 7 double crochet across. So quickly, and that last 7th one is in here. Next stitch is a single right up here, and we are finishing with a double in this stitch down here in orange. And that's row 27 done. And now skip the first 3 stitches of Bonez on row 35, add those 10 stitches, and then we will do row 5 of Thorns right here. Here's row 14 of Thorns, and we have the first 10 stitches of row 36 on Bonez, but as you can see, they're all single crochet up to this middle one, and then we add that 1 DC stitch, and then we can actually continue all single crochet, and the next time we do a double crochet will be again in the middle here. So all of these stitches all the way across are single crochet. So we'll work all of those stitches, add your DC in here, and then we're going to add row 6 in here for Thorns. And then we're going to set up our next section here. So we'll move these stitch markers again. So I'll meet you at the end of this row here. Okay, so now we are done with the arm section in the middle, and we are ready to start working bones again, following the regular chart without anything added in between here. So just like how we had down here where we had a space of 7 stitches, we're going to do the exact same thing up here. So we can count from, this was the last stitch on the Thorns, so we want to go back to 12 stitches across for bones, and we'll mark that last stitch here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is where we're marking that one. So we're going to work bones up to and including that 12th stitch. We'll have 7 stitches here, but just to be absolutely sure, we're going to count from this stitch marker here. This is the last, well, this is the first stitch of the Thorns on this side. So we will count after that stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Mark that 12th stitch. And we will have 7 blank stitches in between these 2 stitch markers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. So now for the next few rows, we are just adding space in here until we get to the next heart section. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Those rows will be, so row 15 of Thorns, row 37 of bones, and then 7 blank stitches. So all DC stitches here. Then we're back to row 37 of bones, and we will finish this row with row 7 of Thorns. The next row that we add, we're going to have all single crochet here. So this next one here will be row 16 of Thorns, row 38 of bones, 7 singles, 38 of bones, and finish with row 8 of Thorns, and then we'll be ready to add the heart up here. Okay, now at this point we are ready to add the heart right in between the 2 skeletons right here, and that'll go in between these 2 purple stitch markers. And I'm actually not going to go row by row showing you how to add the heart, because I actually did cover the heart in my previous video of crocheting in the round. So for reference, if you want to take a look at the heart, this is what we are adding. And this is all 7 stitches across, which will fit perfectly right in between here in these 7 stitches. And we're going to start this one from row 3 and work row 9. So for the next 7 rows, we are going to continue adding 7 more rows of bones and 7 more rows of Thorns on both sides here. I am going to go and do that off camera, and then I will come back and show you how that looks. If you don't have the heart pattern, if you want to take a screenshot, I'll let you. Here is the pattern that we're working with. Okay, now that we have the heart all set in here, you should be up to row 8 because the Thorns repeated again for the 3rd time. So this is what row 7 looks like. This is row 45 of bones all finished. This is the top of the hearts, so this is the end of row 9 of hearts, and then we have row 45 done again, and then back to Thorns. This will be the end of row 15. So now we're ready to add row 8 of Thorns, row 46 of bones, and then in this part here we're going to add all single crochet stitches across and continue. So really from here to here is all single crochet stitches, and then we will finish with row 16 of Thorns on this end here. And now we're going to add 1 more row before we add the moon right up here. So we are going to work row 9 of Thorns, row 47 of bones, all double crochet stitches across, so 7 double crochet in between these. Then we are working Bonez row 47 and Thorns row 17. And then we will start moons up here. And at this point, we're ready to mark out where the moon is going to fit. We have a ton of space here. These are all just background filler stitches, so we have plenty of space to add the moon right there. So we're actually going to ignore this repeat section down here because this really only applies to when you're doing the pattern this way, but when you're working an individual moon like this, we're only going to need the first 9 stitches in the row, and that is what we're going to use for our moon. And we're going to start with row 3, and we're going to work up to row 8, and we're actually going to stop here because this is going to be where the top of our skulls are, and that's where we're going to start planning where our bats will fit on top of there. And because we marked this out, we have 7 stitches in between. We're just going to move these stitch markers 1 over to the right and 1 over to the left. That gives us our 9 stitches, and these are still all blank stitches, so they're not interfering with the heads of the skeletons over here. So now we are ready to work this row. So this will be row 10 of Thorns. This is row 48 of Bonez. I almost completely forgot we need to add 1 more row before we can add the moons here. So you always want to make sure when you're adding another pattern that the colors actually match up. And what I mean by that is the background colors are the same. So if we wanted to add the moons, we would actually have to make sure that we have this because we're on a white row right now. And when we want to add the purple row here, we're going to have to make sure that the row we're working on for all of these is also a purple row. So yeah, sorry, needed to backtrack a little bit there. That is a very important step when you are mashing up a bunch of patterns, that if you're working on a color A row, the next part that you add also has to be a color A row. So I'm going to quickly add in the row that we missed, and then we will continue. Okay, now we are ready to add the moon in between here, and we have our stitch markers set. So we have 9 stitches in between here. So that means the Bonez pattern is going to end 1 stitch earlier, and the Bonez pattern on this side is going to, you're going to skip the first stitch in the Bonez pattern to fit the head here. And so we will start this from row 11. We'll do Thorns. This will be row 49 of Bonez. We're going to add row 3 of Goodnight, all 9 stitches from the first stitch to the 9th stitch. And then we are adding Bonez row 49 again here, and finishing with row 3 on this side. And I am going to go ahead and do the moon off camera, and we are going to stop at row 53 of Bonez. So when we get to the top, that's when we're going to plan where the bats are going to go at the very top. So I will see you at that point there. And now we are officially done with the Bonez pattern, and we can put that aside and we don't need it anymore. Now we are going to continue adding more rows of the moon and the thorns on the sides a little bit higher because the bats are going to be up here. The moon is going to nestle underneath the bat wings a little bit, but we still need a little bit of space here. So we're going to add a few more rows. So continuing the thorns, this will be row 16. These will be all single crochet stitches, so we're just adding more to the background. So single crochet all the way across to this stitch marker. Then we are going to add row 8 of the moon, the first 9 stitches of that pattern, and then all single crochet on top here, and finishing with row 8 of the thorns on this side. And here's what that row looks like added in. And now this thorn will be row 17, and we are adding all double crochet stitches to cover this up here. So we're just adding more background color, all double crochet. and then we will work the first 9 stitches of row 9 in the moon pattern or goodnight pattern. All double crochet to make more background in this section here, and then we are finishing with row 9 of the thorns right there. And here's what that row looks like all added in, and we have one more row to add before we start adding the bats right here. So this will be row 18 of thorns, all single crochet stitches in between here. We have row 10 of the moon, all single crochet stitches here. And finally we have row 10 of the thorns over here. And if you want that to be your final row and finish with the thorns on these sides, you can definitely stop there. I went one extra row, which actually went into the Batty pattern. So if you want to make it a little bit easier, you can stop after this last row here. But I'm going to continue because that's how I have the pattern written. So I'm going to go add that in and we will work on the bats next. Okay, now we are ready to add the bats, and this is the very last section of this project. And this is going to be a little bit tricky because this pattern here, this one here, and this one here, they're all overlapping the bats that are going to be over here. And that is perfectly fine because the bat pattern has a lot of blank background stitches that we can actually use regular patterns instead of background stitches. When you're looking at this, so here we have a regular bat, all of these stitches are just background. So if we are going to take this, we can actually continue adding them in here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is count how many stitches across that we need to get to the bottom of the bat. So that would actually be this bottom part right here. I'm going to count all of those stitches until I get to that point, and I'm going to mark it on here so we know where the middle of the bats will be, and we'll just keep those as stitch markers. So the 12th stitch is the middle of the bat at the bottom, so I'm going to count from the very end 12 stitches over, and that ends up being right here. So then when we get to the stitch marker, we know we're going to have the DC decrease stitches right before and right after, and this is where the bat is going to be centered. And same thing on this side, we're going to count 12. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is where the middle of that bat will be. So we're going to be working the last row of the moon pattern. So this would be row 11 is going to be worked in the same row as row 3 of the bat. And if you're stopping here, you can stop and just make these double crochet stitches in between here. So we'll have 3 and 3, or you can continue like I have on mine, and this would be row 3 right here. And on this side, we'll have row 11 on this side right there. And I'm going to go ahead and add that row in so you can see where this all lines up. Okay, I thought it'd be easier just to show you what I mean about this stitch right here. So we already have 7 stitches done for the thorn on this side, which means we already are 7 stitches in on the Batty pattern. So the 7th stitch is already done. We need to do 8, 9, 10, 11, and this will be the 12th stitch in the middle. So I'll add those in. Those will be 1, 2 double crochet, and then we have that DC decrease in the next 2 stitches with a single crochet over the top of that last stitch there. And that brings us to the 12th stitch of Batty. We can take that out and put our single crochet right there. And then the next stitch in the Batty pattern was that DC decrease after, which starts with a single, and then we have the decrease stitches in the next 2 directly below this one. So we'll pop those in there. And then the rest of these stitches up to here will be double crochet up to and including this stitch marker right here. So now the bottom of Batty is kind of nestled in between these two patterns right here. And we can do the same thing on this side. It is the exact mirror image over there as well. And it gets a little tricky again when we're trying to add the bat again on this side. All we need to know is this stitch that we marked right here is going to be that single crochet stitch in the middle of the bottom of the bat. 2 stitches before that will be where our decrease will go, and any stitches before that are double crochet. So after this moon we have 1 double crochet, we have another one, so 2, 3, and one more, 4, until we get up to those 2 stitches before the stitch marker. That is where we're going to put our decrease. So let's put our decrease in these next 2 stitches before the stitch marker, and this one ends with single crochet on top of that last stitch. This will be the single crochet stitch for the bottom of the bat, so we can take that one out and put our single in here. The next 2 stitches are the other side of the decrease facing the other way. Start with a single, and then directly below the single we have 1, 2 stitches. Those will be decreased together. So we'll add that in here, and then we will add double crochet stitches up to this stitch marker here, which will be the thorns. So we have 1 and 2. And we can work the rest of these. This is going to be row 11 of thorns to the end. And let's just finish up this row real quick. Okay, so now we are done with the moon, so we do not need these stitch markers anymore. That pattern is done, and now all we have left is a little bit of thorn here, a little bit of thorn here, and now we are doing just the 2 bats at the very top. So we will start this side. If you want, you can not add this last stitch here and just start working Batty all the way across from the beginning to the end, or you can add row 4 of thorns on this side, and you can add row 10 of thorns on this side. Actually, they're just the same. It's just a DC. It's just a DC in these stitches right here to extend it a little bit taller. And I'm going to add that in right now. Okay, so this is the end of the thorns, and I added 7 stitches. So when you're looking at the Batty pattern, you're going to start reading the chart from the 7th stitch. So this would be stitch number 8, 9, 10, and then the 3 will go in here. And it's a lot easier to get on this side because we're just continuing Batty all the way across. So I will add those stitches in there, and I will meet you at this side right here. And we are going to continue adding singles until we get to that black stitch in the middle here. Like I said, on the other side, you can either add a DC right here and have that be your last stitch, or you can skip over it and just have this be done. I'm going to add a DC in the middle right here. So right in this one, I'm going to add 1 more. And we're going to finish this row. And now it gets pretty easy because we're just looking at Batty and we're not really focusing on anything else anymore, except for when you're starting on this side, starting row 5 of Batty. And row 5 has 5 DCs, but because we have this one here, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to work those 5 stitches, which will be 3 double, 1 single, and 1 double. Then the 6th stitch on row 5, we will follow from there. And now at the end here, when you look at the end of the Batty chart, you should have 5 DCs, but because we have this one here, this is going to be a single crochet stitch. So all we need to do is add 1 DC, 1 single, and 3 DCs to the end, and that'll finish this row here, which was row 5 of Batty. And now we are ready to add rows 6 through 9 of Batty, and we will be completely done with this. So I am going to go ahead and add those rows off camera. And before we call this project completely done, I am going to add 1 more row of single crochet stitches all the way across, just to kind of finish this edge here. And I'm going to be going into the top back loops only, all the way across, using the same background color to finish. And here is the finished back patch. I think this came out super cool in orange and black. I'm actually going to gift this one to my husband, and he can sew it on whatever he wants. I think he said he was going to try and put this on a running vest, which I think would be really, really cool. And for this one that I had made, I'm going to sew on the back of my denim jacket. And yeah, aw, we're matching. As for the edges, like I said, I'm going to keep mine like fringe. And I'm going to use a sewing machine to sew this onto my jacket, because this is a lot of hand sewing and I don't think I have the patience for it. So what you could also do if you don't want to deal with any of these ends is you can fold these in and hide them on the inside and then attach it to whatever you're planning on sewing this to. Or you can take this entire thing and put it in a frame and make it some cool wall art. Or you can weave all of these into the back like I did with the other wall hanging, and then attach this to a dowel with, you could either do single crochet stitches, wrapping each stitch as you go. You know, there's several different ways of attaching a dowel, but yeah, you can do whatever you want. I hope this video inspired you to maybe give some other patterns a try, to make your own types of mashups, and hopefully you learned something about putting different patterns together. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon for the next video. Bye!